Of the Coolidge City Council to order and ask that everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Norma, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Lewis. I know he's here.
He's out front.
He's up front, okay. Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a quorum, Norma?
We do.
Thank you. First order of business under presentations is introduction of new hires for the city of Coolidge. Discussion only. Who's got Rachel? Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor Thompson and council members. Tonight, we'd like to bring forward our newly hired employees to recognize them to the city of Coolidge and the community. It is our goal of the city of Coolidge to hire valuable and much-needed employees. Please welcome the following new hired employees. In our administration, under City Manager Bob Flatley, we have Administrative Assistant Anthony Kozlowski.
Yeah, Anthony's an intern with the city until the end of the budget year, and he's a second-year student at ASU in public management. And he wanted to work for a small city, and he asked to work for Coolidge, and so we're glad to have him. He's already done a number of studies for us.
In our finance department, under Finance Director Lisa Panella, we have account clerks Jody Williams and Danae Blackcloud. In our Public Works departments, under Public Works Director Susanna Struble, we have custodians Joe Guadian and Carolyn Michelle Barton.
Careful with this Coolidge, you guys. How are you?
Bob was going back, you know.
Under the Library Department, under Assistant City Manager Jill Dusenberry, we have Library Assistant.
Gilbert, all right?
Oh, hold on, yeah, you got a cable.
You still there, Gilbert? Still there, Gilbert?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Thank you.
Knock your name off.
Don't worry about your seat.
We have Library Assistant Danielle Duran. In the Police Department, under Police Chief Jim Malinsky, we have Public Safety Dispatcher Julie Reitz. They're not here tonight. It is an honor to have them all join our team. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda is presentation, Certificate of Heroism. Okay, I see our police and fire chief coming. What we're going to do is they're going to make the presentations, and then the council's going to come down and shake the hands of the heroes.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. On the 25th of February, there was a fatal accident out on State Route 87, and I was one of the first to arrive, and when I arrived, there was a Samuel Jimenez and a Ronaldo Rascon, hopefully I got your names right, that were doing some beautiful CPR. As a result of their effort, we actually had a treatable rhythm on the patient, and we were able to treat them and transport them. And unfortunately, in the end, it was not successful. However, without their great effort, it would have not been possible to start with. So we'd like to recognize them with a certificate of heroism. I'd like to have them come forward and accept these certificates for pulling the gentleman out of the wrecked car, doing CPR, and providing first aid. let you guys walk up there and shake hands if you have anything to say. Both these gentlemen work for the Gila River Indian Community Utility Authority. They're linemen. They happen to be working in the area and on site the accident. Not to let you guys get away too easy. This is Engineer Matt Mayo and Captain Joe Shaw. You might recognize them. They were the ones that relieved you when you're doing CPR. And on behalf of the Firefighters Association, they're presenting you with a $25 gift certificate so you can take your families out to eat.
Thanks again. You guys did an excellent job. Item number 5 on the agenda is monthly report and business spotlight, recognitions by the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce, and I thought I saw Lynn. There she is. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. As you know, we just got done with Cotton Days. It was a successful event. We were blessed with great weather. But people that make this event possible is some of our sponsors. And I'm going to introduce tonight our gold sponsors. I'm going to start with APS. And a statement I have from APS. We were founded 5 years after Tombstone's gunfight at the OK Corral and nearly a quarter of century before Arizona became a state. Although we serve Arizona for more than 125 years, in many ways, it feels like we're just getting started. I'd like to introduce Richard Rosales.
Thank you, Lynn, Honorable Mayor Thompson, council members. On behalf of APS and our 6,500 employees, we're honored to be a part of the Cotton Days here in Coolidge. But I want to throw a lot of the, I got lost for words, but Lynn and her staff should deserve a lot of the credit for the countless hours they put in that weekend to make this a huge success in Coolidge, and it was a great opportunity for us to be a part of it. So thank you, and thank you to Lynn and the Chamber staff as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rosales.
Next, I'd like to introduce Clay Skiles from Crop Production, and I have a statement from them. We are committed to being the leading provider of agricultural inputs in each of our markets. We attract and retain outstanding employees by motivating and rewarding them in their accomplishments and providing exceptional service to our valued customers. Clay Skiles.
Hello, council members. My name is Clay Skiles. I'm operations manager at Crop Production Services for the last 9 years. I'm just honored to work for a company that gives so much back to the community, and as being lived in the community for the last 46 years, I mean that means a lot to me to finally be working for a company that's given back to where I lived for so long. So you know, I'm honored by that, and I'm proud to be a sponsor for the event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
And next, I'd like to recognize Golden Eagle Distributing. Nick Sage is here to represent them. And since 1974, Golden Eagle Distributing has been Arizona's beer distributor for 3 generations. The Clemens family has been selling delicious beer and providing great service to our retailers. We support communities, we promote the brands, and we care about our environment. Nick Sage.
Honorable Mayor and Chamber, it's a pleasure to work with Lynn. I've been with Golden Eagle now for 8 years. I'm the supervisor for this area, and it's also a privilege to work for a company that gives back to our community. We've gone green, we recycle, we've got CNG trucks now. I know they're expanding in Buckeye, we're doing the same, putting a CNG in there, so I know we're giving back to the company too. It's a pleasure, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coolidge.
Well, as you know, the Cotton Days is a big festival, and it takes a lot of people, and a lot of people have been involved. It took a lot to get it done. And city staff, I can even thank Jackie. She was there helping as well. So we appreciate all of it. Without everybody and all our sponsors, we couldn't be so successful. Now move on to our chamber reinvestments. For January, we have Bank of the West, Community Presbyterian Church, Day Auto Supply, Golden Eagle, Coolidge Ace Hardware, Coolidge Unified School District, Open Hands Outreach Program. Our statistics for January, we were up on our web hits. We had 212,208. Walk-ins were up at 1,571. Phone calls, 497. We only sent out one relocation packet and went to Maryland. Top states that visited us was Michigan and Minnesota. Top foreign states was Canada and the Netherlands. The Casa Grande Ruins had, for January, 9,272 visitors, and I don't have the year-to-date on that. Some events coming up, and I'd like to invite you to the Goree Annual Arizona Combined Driving Event. We're going to do a wine and cheese reception on March 13th, 3:30 to 5:30. A lot of people come from out of the area for this event, so I'd like to have you come and help welcome them. Beauty Within is on March 7th, 14th, and 21st. Apache Leap Mining Festival is March 13th to the 15th. March 14th, we have Great Southwest Radio Theater. Also on the 14th, we have the Color Dash 5K. And on the 18th, we'll have our membership luncheon. On the 18th, we'll also have Grandma's Suitcase at the Adult Center. And March 18th through the 22nd is the fair. The 20th is Just Breathe at the library. And on the 25th, So You Want to Start a Business, also at the library. On the 27th, Learn How to Keep Your Healthy Heart Healthy, our library. And on April 1st and 2nd, Kilroy Was Here. That'll be at the PAC. And on the 4th, the Ancient Art Forum at the Artisan Village. For more information on this, you can visit the coolidgechamber.org. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? No, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Honorable Mayor, before we move on, we've had one newly hired employee just show up, so we'd like to recognize her as well.
Well, let's go and do it.
Okay. Our new staff is one of our custodians in the Building Maintenance Department, Miss Michelle Barton. And
Welcome aboard, Michelle.
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Norma. Next on the agenda is call to the public. This is the part of the meeting where we have the public has an opportunity for 3 to 5 minutes to come up. Please state your name and your address and let us know what your situation is, telling you that we cannot respond to you at this time, but we can have city staff look into whatever the situation may be. So if there's anybody here that needs to come up and say something, please come up now.
Hello, my name's Catherine Clemens. I live at 715 West Central Avenue. I'm here today to address the council with the concern that I've been having, as well as my husband and our neighbors. The traffic on West Central has been increasing for the past couple of years. Not only is there a really heavy flow of traffic, but they are traveling at an excessive rate of speed. This is in part, we feel, to the lack of a stop sign on any part of the Central Avenue that we live on, which is between Arizona Boulevard and 9th Street. Our concerns are there's no safe way for children to cross Central as they go to and from school, either West School or the high school. Some residents are afraid to even back out of their driveway because of the speed of the people driving down it. The street is used as a shortcut. We see people all the time traveling from either 9th Street or Arizona Boulevard all the way down to the end and then turning onto the opposite side. Even the school buses tend to travel at a really high rate of speed, which we are aware that they've actually been told not to drive down Central. We're concerned that there may be an accident or a child hit. A lot of our neighbors aren't even comfortable with their children playing on the street because of this. Every single street, except for Central, in our immediate area has a stop sign, and even Pinkley has a sign that says, "Caution, slow children at play." We can't even really sit with our house front door open. It sounds like we live on an interstate, not in a residential neighborhood. We have been speaking with the police department, and they have increased patrols. We were told last night that in just one shift, they pulled 32 vehicles over for speeding down our road. They do agree that there is a problem. They have mentioned, we brought up a stop sign. They said that might help. I've spoken with Public Works. They also said that I would have to address the council here in order to have that change made on the avenue. Keeping in mind the tighter budgets that cities have these days, we feel the stop sign would be the most economical way to take care of this. Any questions?
Any questions? We can't really address it, but I think city staff has heard loud and clear what you've had to say, so
Okay.
I'm sure they'll be addressing it.
All right, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing nobody approach, then we'll move into...
We do.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I've received two notices from the city of Coolidge.
I think everybody knows who you are, but for the record, would you state your name and your address
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
record? Thank you, sir.
My name's Bud Ricketts. My address is 760 West Douglas Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Ricketts.
And I need to have an issue brought aboard, in front of the council and put on their agenda. City zoning code 1002-E, recreational vehicle parking. I'd like to have it brought up so that we can talk about it next time.
Norma, you,
Oh, we have that.
okay. We'll talk about it next time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ricketts.
What's the issue? Mr. Mayor, what's the
It's
issue?
parking in the front of the house. in an
Recreational
RV.
vehicle
Yeah.
parking.
Oh, it deals with parking?
He gave us a number of the
The code.
code.
Okay.
So that's what we'll discuss. We'll put it on the agenda. All right. Anybody else? I'm going to wait a minute because he jumped up a little late. We good? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to approval of minutes, discussion, and action. Item 6, City Council Study Sessions, February 9th, 2015. City Council Regular Meeting, February 9th, 2015. City Council Study Sessions, February 23rd. City Council Regular Meeting, February 23rd. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any concerns with any of that?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, hearing none, I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving to the business items for consent. Before I read these, is there any one of these that needs to be pulled off by any member here?
11.
10 and 11?
10 and 11, yeah.
Did you, 10 and 11?
Yes, sir. It
All
just
right.
wasn't coming up.
Okay. Mr. Lopez, Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
anything you need pulled off of that agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you,
Good.
sir. Okay, then I'm going to start with 12. And I don't see any resolutions in these, so this is we won't need a roll call vote. Number 12, Consider approval of utilizing 2014 Homeland Security Grant Number 140314-2 funds for an amount not to exceed $73,930 to purchase computer services, software, and licenses from Taggart Direct. What?
That's 11.
That's 11.
No, not on mine. On mine, it's 12.
On mine, that's 11. 11 pulled off.
Oh,
Yeah, but I'm reading 12.
Or not on my sheet.
Well, then something's wrong, but this is 12 on mine. Mm-hmm. Oh, somebody ought to send the mayor the right agenda. Okay. 12. Consider approval of entering into, scratch before, this is the new 12. Consider approval of entering into a third addendum between the City of Coolidge and Pavement Restoration, Inc., contract utilizing the Town of Queen Creek, Arizona contract for IFB number 13-006, surface rejuvenation for the purchase of surface rejuvenation seal, reclamanite for the streets work program, and approving an additional $5,000 for a total amount not to exceed $35,000 plus sales tax, authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents. Who's got, oh, that's okay, it's consent. Number 13, consider approval of entering into a second amendment to agreement between the City of Coolidge and Holbrook Asphalt LLC through the addendum of the City of El Mirage Cooperative Purchasing Agreement to purchase high-density mineral bond asphalt HA5 seal coat for the street work program, authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents. 14, consider approval of bid to Cactus Asphalt in the amount of $3,094, for roadway improvements on the Randolph Road East and West of State Route 87 project, and approval to enter into a contract for construction services between the City of Coolidge and Cactus Asphalt, authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents. So those are the three on this agenda. Do you guys have anything else? All right. You sure? Anybody? You guys got anything else? Anything different I need to know about?
No.
All right. In that case, I'll need a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve consent agenda items 12, 13, and 14 as read.
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. The ayes have it. So now we'll go back to what would be 10 and 11. All right. Item number 10, resolution number 15-09, a resolution for the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, accepting the $100 Club Safety Enhancement Stipend Award in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for the purchase of 5 sets of personal protective gear for the fire department and authorizing the purchase of such personal protective gear. Chief?
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. The 100 Club is a service club that supports police and fire. They do a stipend program where they award various amounts throughout the year as they have funding available. They provide everything from turnouts to bulletproof vests to protective equipment for canines and such. We asked them if they would consider giving us a stipend. Originally, we asked to have all their turnouts replaced. They obviously don't have the funding for that, but that was our grand dream. They did award us 5 sets at basically $3,000 per set, which is pretty much the going rate for turnouts at this time. So we'd like to accept the $15,000 that they set aside and purchase 5 sets of turnouts. The turnouts will go to the 5 people with the greatest need for turnouts. So,
Whether it be full-time or volunteers?
yeah, chances are one set will probably go to me because I have not been issued turnouts by the city yet. I know at least one set will go to a volunteer because we don't have a proper size for them. The other 3 sets will go to more than likely volunteers, but to the 3 people that have the greatest need after that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Who asked that this be pulled?
I did, but I know that Answer the questions.
I'm
good.
Were there any questions?
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, this is the one, if everybody's agenda is in tune, that there's a resolution. So that's correct?
That's correct.
Then I guess we're going to need a
We'll need a motion and a
motion.
second.
Mayor,
Yes.
move to approve resolution number 15-09 is read.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, we need a, go ahead, Norma.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Item number 11, consider approval of utilizing 2014 Homeland Security Grant Number 140314-2, funds for an amount not to exceed $73,930 to purchase computer servers, software, and licenses from Tiger Direct, utilizing the TIPS Cooperative Procurement Contract Number 5022312, and waiving the sealed bid requirements in the best interest of the city. Okay, who had this one?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, I'm going to respectfully defer to IT Director Robbie Criswell to explain the technical aspects of the computer equipment.
Mayor, council members, this is an item we talked about once before, but basically our current mobile system that we use in all our police cars to be able to communicate back with dispatch is currently on version 7. In order to upgrade to the latest version, which is coming out this year, which will be version 11, quite a big difference. Version 7 is what we've been running since 2008. We need to significantly upgrade our servers that run this software. Obviously, with our budgets kind of tight as they are, we've been very limited, and we were seeking a grant, and this grant would basically pay for us to upgrade our servers, or the back end, so to speak, to make this system go forward, hopefully later this year. Like I said, I believe this came once before to actually approve the grant. Now we're coming to actually make the purchase of the hardware. It is under a grant, a TIPS grant, but because it's not one I've used before, we elected to go ahead and bring it to council just to verify that it's okay to move forward due to the nature of the cost. Typically, anything over $25,000 needs 3 sealed bids, but with a grant, you can skip that. Even though we had a grant, we wanted to make sure that you guys saw the cost and were okay with it before we moved forward.
Sure. What kind of strings are attached? Any strings attached to this?
Oh, that's grant specific. I'll let the chief answer that.
None that I'm aware of, Councilmember. Okay. Okay.
And so this grant is saving us $74,000 every.
It'll actually be a little bit less. We found equipment that it's at a little bit cheaper price. I believe we're going to be in the $50,000 range, so we won't have to use the entire amount.
Thanks, Chief.
Any questions down here? Okay, in that case, are you okay, satisfied? All right. In that case, I need a motion.
Mayor,
Yes,
move
ma'am.
to approve number 11 is read.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that one passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is Bob's. So if I've got the right agenda, we move into regular items, resolution number 1510. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing submission of an application to the Federal Management Agency, FEMA, for surplus federal real property to benefit public conveyance and BRAC programs for emergency management use to acquire the San Carlos Irrigation Project, old main office building and land to use as a downtown fire station with a training room.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. This is stage 2 of an item that we talked about originally in February. You did authorize us to submit a notice of intent to acquire the building at 255 West Roosevelt, known as the San Carlos Irrigation Project Old Main Office Building. Our notice of intent to acquire was accepted, and our application was referred to FEMA because we had designated in that intent that we would want to acquire the building and repurpose it as a building for our fire department. The deadline for the application to FEMA is on a 30-day turnaround from the date that we submitted our application. So before you this evening, you do have a draft of the application in your packet for review. It talks about what is the intended purpose of the building, some estimated costs on the rehabilitation of the building, that we have contacted the state offices that coordinate grants for all state and federal programs, and then of course also contacting the State Historic Preservation Office. As you can see in the application, it has a hefty price tag for rehabilitation. We are estimating over $1 million to repair the property in total. We are proposing that over a 6-year period. There are not funds completely designated to be able to accomplish this, but we feel it is a good purpose to have a building back in service and not vacant in our downtown. The application, we don't know if FEMA would accept that we're proposing it over a 6-year period. Our fire department and myself will be working on an application to Gila River Indian Community for Proposition 202 funding to hopefully be able to secure some funds to do the immediate stabilization of the roof, because it does have a leaking roof at this point. We do not, you'll see a blank if you were reviewing the application narrative. We've not been able to estimate the maintenance costs. We're going to pull that from another department's budget, probably this facility, and base it on a square footage analysis. Today we did receive in the mail correspondence back from the State Historic Preservation Office, who is supportive of our intent to repurpose the building and to save a historic building in the downtown area of Coolidge. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but in order to submit the application and go forward, we would need council passing the resolution this evening of our intent to acquire and the proposed use of the building.
Are there any questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we're telling FEMA that if we get the building, we're going to do the rehab within a 6-year period. We'll have it done over 6 years.
Over a 6-year period. If you noticed in the application, we did not identify a year when it was going to start.
Okay.
And because at that point, I cannot guarantee that we'd have money as of July 1 to be able to start that. So that could be FEMA's questions back to us, in my personal opinion, as to when is the official start time. We are the only entity asking for the transfer of this building. We are not in competition with anyone else at this time.
So it's $1 million over 6 years to update a building to house a fire department that we don't currently have the staffing that would need to go in that building. So we'd have to bring the staffing up as well.
We would not have to bring the staffing up. The proposal, as you can see, was adding the crew quarters as we need to. If it had not made the decision to go to a 24/7 fire operation, then we would still have meeting offices. We'd have training space so that there could be trainings held with all the volunteers, but we would not have to create the staffing to match that.
And just for clarification, we were required to tell them exactly what the building would be used for?
Correct. If we are pursuing it through FEMA, it has to be for a public safety purpose. So it would either be police, which we have this facility, so it would be hard to justify a building, or fire.
And we had not the slightest idea of where that money's coming from to fix it, right?
At this point, other than applying for the Gila River, we will be requesting funding from the city on general fund capital expenditures, but at this point I can't imagine that there's a lot of resources available to do that, so grant funding opportunities will be what we pursue first.
So we'd be asking for more grants too?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Jill, I do have a couple of questions. And looking this over, and I initially thought it was a really good idea, but I wasn't aware of a $1.1 million price tag over the next 5 to 6 years either when we initially looked at it. It might be different if we had a lot of money, but we don't. And I see my two gentlemen friends in the back with Arizona ADQ, and I know they want their share of money. So I'm here. They're not here to finance, though they're smiling. But I'm concerned that, I mean, where are we going to, we're going to have to pay for these tanks, and there's a number of other issues come up. I would love to have it because there's a lot of land that goes with it, and I think in the future that's almost going to be the center of town where most of our work, what I think the fire chief told me, 65 to 70% of the activity comes right out of the immediate area where this thing would be the center. But I have some concerns that we're going to try to be committing $200,000 a year to something that, you know, I'd love to see a full-time fire department, but I don't know, one, if we can afford it, and two, how much trouble we're going to have rehabbing this. My question now is, what could you get if you built a building for $1.1 million that was brand new and you didn't have to go through all the abatements and everything else, but you haven't had a chance to prepare, so you can't answer that?
Well, I can tell you a fire station, when you look at our capital improvements project and you look at the replacement or the construction of a fire station with the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, the offices, that type of thing, that is price tagged at $3.5 million. So again, I don't know where $3.5 million would come from either, so it is a sticky situation. At this point, I am not aware of the complete process because this is the first time in my career I've ever pursued the acquisition of a federal building. It is an application process. Until the building transfers to the city of Coolidge, I think there is a way for the city to say, no, this doesn't work for us. However, if we do not comply or submit the application by March 16th, then we're out of consideration. So it is kind of a catch-22 as well. There would be a conveyance, and the property would be conveyed to the city, and I would ensure the mayor and council would have to approve that conveyance and sign it. I would imagine it could be stopped at that process. I don't know if FEMA is going to respond back to us and say, you need to designate in your budget where this money is coming from starting July 1 for the next 6 years. If they do that, of course, we could not comply with that because I don't think the city can set that money aside. But at this point, staff's recommendation was to go forward and see what we can do. Otherwise, we have another vacant building sitting in downtown.
Jill, do you know what that building would appraise for with the land? Dollar amount of what that building and land's worth?
I don't know what an appraisal would be. When I checked the county records when the city manager asked me to take over this project, I think the assessed value from the county on the building was like $54,000, and the land was valued about $12,000, and there's 3 parcels or 4 parcels. So we're talking in the neighborhood of $120,000 for the land and the buildings if we go with county assessment amounts.
Thank you.
So if we did enter into this with FEMA and for some reason we weren't able to uphold our end, we're going to run the risk of FEMA not helping us out again, probably, correct?
I would doubt that. It would be depending upon the reason why it did not go forward. If it did not, in most grant situations or situations that I've worked with on the federal, if there was a valid reason why something did not go forward, that there was not funding available, there was a downturn in the economy, that typically is not held against you. If you've done anything that would be considered, I hate to say, fraudulent or without full disclosure, that it's like, no, we just changed our minds now, that probably would not be looked upon favorably. But this is not the grant division of FEMA. This is the property disposition, so properties with FEMA. So it's a little bit different, and I think our intent would be discussed.
But asking them for something without even knowing we can cover it is kind of would not be looked good upon. I don't think anyway.
Again, it's interpretation. It's something that
really
nobody knows the answer to that question.
We really just don't know is the answer. We're going to ask
Correct.
the federal government for something knowing we do not have any capital to cover this, and we're just going to take a risk, pretty much.
At this point, I can't, council sets the capital budget. I'm saying on my analysis, I'm not aware of extra funds available, but that's not a staff decision on what's set aside for capital.
Okay. On the other hand, we don't know that there's not something out there that we can locate between now and the time we get an opportunity to approve of the final draft.
That is correct.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Anything else down here? All right, it's a resolution. Councilmember Lopez, you still awake?
Yes, sir.
You got anything to say on this?
No, I just think if there's a way for us not to commit fully, I mean, we can apply for it, see what happens, and then, because there are some grants. I attended a grants.gov to try to see what else is out there, and there's apparently some grants, so we can continue to look and see.
Thank you, sir. You know, I look at where it's located, and I know we've had a lot more activity at the senior center. Not that that's what it's for, but people could park across the street. And there's a lot of land with it, so if there's no other comments, I'm going to look for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 15-10 as read.
Second.
I second that.
Okay. Pick which one you want, Norma. There's a motion and a second. We'll need a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Huddleston?
No.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Murrieta?
No.
Councilmember Lewis?
No.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Okay, pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 16 is Gary Johnson on yours. Okay. Item number 16, consider award of a bid to Gary L. Johnson in the amount of $27,500 for employee benefit package brokerage consulting services and approval of entering into a professional services agreement between the City of Coolidge and Gary L. Johnson, authorizing the mayor to execute the necessary documents. There, Rachel, thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Earlier this year, the City of Coolidge solicited and requested bids for employee benefit brokerage consulting services. Bids were solicited and received around the state of Arizona. A total of 4 competitive bids were received. They were Gary L. Johnson, the Mahoney Group, Employee Benefits Consultant Group, and Holmes Murphy and Associates. The scores were based on the evaluation criteria listed in the request for proposal, which was based on the scope of work and fees. Based on the selection committee cumulative scores, Gary L. Johnson scored the highest at 84.6, making them the top vendor. After review and discussion with Gary L. Johnson and team, they met the evaluation criteria with an affordable pricing. We also have here today Eric Johnson with Gary Johnson. Not sure if you want to say a few words. No? Okay. No. So in the best interest of the City of Coolidge and its employees, we recommend awarding and entering into an agreement with Gary L. Johnson as they meet the city evaluation criteria and provide an affordable price. We're available to answer any questions you may have.
This doesn't include the actual bid on the package. This isn't self-funded or a combination?
No, this is just going with a broker. They will go out and solicit.
And they will replace the broker we have now.
Yes.
That brought us the product that we're now dealing with.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I need a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we award the bid to Gary L. Johnson for the amount of $27,500 for the benefit consulting services.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote. Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Congratulations. Look forward to working with you, but you're not going to get off that easy next time. I have on my agenda, item number 17. I'm going to read a little bit of it, so tell me if I'm wrong. Consider approval of entering into a professional service agreement between the City of Coolidge and Kaufman Associates, Inc. Am I on the right? Okay, we're all on the same page now? All right. For the preparation of an environmental assessment for a self-serve fuel farm relocation at the Coolidge Municipal Airport for an amount of not to exceed $23,829, waiving the city's bidding requirements in the best interest of the city. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I know you're getting tired of seeing my face about this topic, and I was doing my best to have Lisa Pinella present it tonight, but she wouldn't do it.
I don't blame her.
This item has been a difficult item, I must say, over the last several council meetings. And through the dissent and through the discussion and the differences of opinion, I believe this evening that we have proposals that are in the best interest of the airport in the way of resolving a problem that's been there far longer than it should have been there. The tanks, as we know, needed to be replaced in 1998 under a federal requirement or mandate under Title 16 under the FAA rules. Our tanks were certainly delayed. They should have been out of the ground by that time. And so we're standing today with tanks in the ground that are in violation of several major concerns. And most of which is, the potential for contamination of the groundwater and the soils in the area in the event of a leak from one of these tanks. We've had a lot of discussions about what to do with these, whether we put them above ground or below ground, the location of the tanks, where they should be. We've had a lot of discussion about that, and we talked about the necessity to have an environmental assessment if they're put somewhere other than the exact location of where they are today, based on federal aviation rules for the requirement of a environmental assessment. Done a lot of research through this project. I was in no way an expert, and I feel like I'm getting a little more experience about fuel storage tanks, but in no way was I an expert beginning of this process. And part of the difficulty that you may have had is based on some of the inexperience that I've had with dealing with fuel tanks. But tonight, in this first agenda item, we're requesting that the mayor and council approve the scope of services and contract with Kaufman and Associates for the preparation of an environmental assessment for a self-serve fuel farm relocation at the Coolidge Municipal Airport in the amount not to exceed $23,829, and waiving the city's bidding requirements for this type of professional service. Kaufman and Associates has been under contract with the city on a number of occasions, including our airport master plan. They've done other categorical exclusion studies, which are environmental studies. We talked with Kaufman and Associates, in particular Judy Krause with Kaufman, and she also spoke with the Federal Aviation Administration Phoenix office environmental specialist, Amy Gibbons. And through that conversation, they were able to find us some savings, I believe, in what it would normally cost to do an environmental study for the relocation of these tanks. Because of the disturbed nature of this particular area that we're looking at putting the tanks now, which is 130 feet south of the existing tanks on the south side of the grass, like we talked about at the last meeting, the environmental study would be about $23,829 in order to satisfy the Federal Aviation Administration's requirement for the relocation of those fuel tanks. As part of that study, the airport layout plan will be revised to reflect the new location of the tanks on the airport layout plan. And so tonight, in the first order of business, asking the council to approve the scope of services to allow the preparation of that environmental assessment. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have related to that item.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think this horse has been beat to death, and I don't agree with everything, and I don't agree with the cost. But I think it's time for the city of Coolidge to move on, get this taken care of, and let's move on and get to something else. So I'm in favor of it.
Is this the kind of a replacement to the environmental study that was going to be $100,000?
It's not a replacement. It's we never had an estimate of what that study would cost. Early on, I was told that it could cost as much as $100,000.
But this is the same
thing
taken care of.
And as I mentioned at the last council meeting, I was going to do my very best to go to the Federal Aviation Administration and try to find some way to do this study, much like we would do a categorical exclusion. They won't allow that kind of study. This is a little more detailed than you would see in that kind of a study, but much less detailed than you would see in a normal environmental study, which could cost upwards of $100,000. So I think it's a bargain for what I think we need to get the FAA to approve the relocation of the tanks 130 feet south of where they are now.
Good. Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, sir. I agree with that because I think because we're using federal money at the airport, we need to follow the NEPA regulations and be in compliance. So if the FAA needs that, I agree with Councilmember Hudson. It's something we need to do, take care of this, and move forward.
Okay, this side.
Do you have a question?
No. Sure.
I have a question. Do you?
No, I agree.
Councilmember Lewis.
Where exactly is this study for again? Like, where's the location?
The location for this particular study would be 130 feet, approximately 130 feet south of where they're currently located. I don't know I think you were here when we showed the slides of the airport fly-in. We had a couple of cones that were on the south side of the grass. So 130 feet south of where they are on the existing ramp.
So we decided to move where the tanks are going to go.
That's where the proposed tanks would go, above ground. We'll talk about that in the next item. Above ground, 130 feet south of where the current dispensers are.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Jim, you good? Well, thank you, Mr. Miller. I
Thank
never
you.
thought I'd see the day. This looks like one of those where nobody's going to walk away mad, but nobody's going to walk away happy either. From the guys that are out at the airport to the guys that are on the council. But you know something? We do need to move forward. We have a lot of other pressing issues here. We need to take care of business with this and get going. So in that case, I'm looking for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve item agenda 17 as read.
Second.
I second that.
Okay, take which one you want, Norma. All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, there you go. All right. Oh. See, now I have 3 agendas. Okay. That makes me the winner, right? Okay. Item number 18, and once again, I'm going to go ahead and read it about halfway through, and you guys let me know if I've got the right agenda. And thanks, Bob, I appreciate this.
You're
But-
welcome.
Consider approval of entering into a contract for jet fuel and AV gas facility construction, AST decommissioning of existing fuel facility at the Coolidge Municipal Airport between the City of Coolidge and Fry Construction, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $536,155.47 to upgrade the fuel farm facility at the Coolidge Airport. And that's it. There you go. Okay.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, based on the last conversation at the council meeting and looking at this possible new location to put these tanks above ground, 130 feet south of where they're currently located, we went back to Fry Construction, Inc. and asked them to come up with a new scope of work to introduce the above-ground tanks, 2 above-ground 12,000-gallon tanks, Jet A and low lead, there at that location. They did prepare a new scope of work. Basically, it's the same scope of work as what they were proposing before. However, the difference in the cost is that the logistics kind of go away, because you recall the last scope of work, they had to build a system, get it functioning to provide fuel to the consumers out there. Then they were going to remove the existing tanks, and then they have to, once they removed and preparing the site, then they would reconstruct the tanks that they did temporarily over to the permanent location above the existing tanks. So that became quite an expense to do that logistically. They came back with a new scope that basically basically provides the same kind of system in a location without having to decommission the system and replace it to the new site, or to the where the tanks are now. The cost of the project would be $486,690. That's the project cost. But when you add the contractor's sales tax and the 3% bond that the city requires, the cost of this project is $536,155.47 to build an above-ground system, 2 12,000-gallon tanks, 130 feet south of where they are now, get that operational, moving, and then they'll decommission the old tanks, take them out of the ground, dispose of them properly, and then we'll be in the business again, moving forward. Our recommendation tonight is to approve the contract with Fry Construction for the fuel farm upgrades at the municipal airport in an amount not to exceed $536,155.47. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions down here?
No, I just think that before it costs the city any more money, we just need to move forward and get this thing approved tonight.
I agree.
Down here? You have anything you want to ask, Mr.
Yes,
Wood?
sir. Yes, sir. So we're putting the above-ground tanks are going to go in first and become fully functional before we mess with the underground tanks,
That's
correct?
the idea. That way we keep the delivery of fuel going.
Wow. Okay, so the underground tanks are going to be continued to run while we're putting the above-ground in.
That's the idea.
How long is that going to take?
Well, some of the only unknown there is how long it will take the FAA to approve the environmental study. That study will take a little while, probably 2 or 3 months, for the FAA to review and approve that. In the meantime, we can go ahead and have the contractor begin ordering the tanks, the construction of the tanks, because we're going to need the tanks regardless.
How long's construction?
Construction was, I think, I'm trying to remember the scope of work in terms of timeline. I think it was around 4 or 5 months max.
So we're taking 7 to 8 months, 6 to 8 possibly, with the underground tanks still being used, but they're at such dismay or disarray right now that our gentlemen who love us in the back are going to start finding us because of how bad they are.
Well, they're there and they're listening intently on the conversation tonight. I think they're trying to find that we have a plan of action. That's what their desire has been in our meetings, and they can speak here in a minute. But I think the key is that we're moving forward and that we have a plan. We still have our responsibility to ensure that the tanks that are there are not leaking by doing our tightness test and our SIR reports on a monthly basis to make sure that we don't have any leaking tanks going on or any suspicious leaks. And as long as those studies and reports keep coming back favorably, we shouldn't have a problem using the existing tanks until the other ones are functioning.
I agree with you, and I do agree with Councilmember Hudson and Lopez that we need to get this taken care of. It's been way too long. However, we're still 6 to 9 months with those tanks that we shouldn't be using now going to be used. And I know we've asked this question before, and I have yet to receive an answer. And I think this is probably more directed towards Dennis. Have we determined, are we bound legally and contractually to be the ones providing the fuel while this construction is going on? Or can whoever's operating this airport pull a truck out there and operate fuel? Because I know that's been asked by multiple people, and I don't think that's been completely answered. Because I think we're kind of taking that responsibility on without anyone saying by law or by contract, yes, that is 100% our responsibility, when Mr. Record can pull a fuel truck out there, and however he takes payment is up to him. But I don't think that's completely our issue. Because right now we're going to still be using these tanks for minimum 6 months, and what I'm hearing is we should stop using them now. We should have stopped using them in 1998 or 2008, whatever it was you said earlier.
I don't think that the ADQ has mandated that they stop using them right now. But
I don't think there's a mandate.
They'd love to see us have moving along with a plan to get them decommissioned and out of the ground.
But legally speaking, I've asked the question.
Right, and I think, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, is there a contract that says the city will provide fuel? I don't believe there's anything in a contract like that. I think it's inferred from like the contract we have with Complete Parachute. They're running an operation out there. They're expecting a fully functioning airport, is how that contract reads. And I think part of a fully functioning airport is fuel. And I think if we weren't able to provide for a period of time, as long as we had a plan in place and talked to them and worked with them about when it was going to not be there, I think they'd probably work with us. But there's not any black and white legal obligation that I can recall from any of the contracts we've entered into where we take on the obligation to do that. I think the closest one is Complete Parachute, which is, they're expecting to be able to have a fully functioning airport.
Then I think we need to have some kind of executive session where someone explains to me what exactly an FBO does, because I thought the O in that meant operator, and that's an airport that they're operating. So I'm kind of confused on what exactly he's doing out there then.
Well, I think an FBO can have a lot of different roles at an airport, depending on what they're actually overseeing and what they're actually doing. So, I mean, I think we could, if you wanted to, or if the council wanted to, have a work session or an executive session concerning, different roles and obligations out at the airport.
Yeah, and I'm speaking for myself, I do think those underground tanks should be stopped now. Bring a fuel truck out there so we don't avoid any possible issues that we're concerned about, because we're currently concerned about leaks and environmental issues. But yet we're still going to use them for 6 to 9 months. This doesn't make any sense.
And I'm saying 6 to 9. It may be less than 6 to 9 months. I don't have a date for the environmental
2 months.
study.
We've already years into this.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but that's all I have, because like I said, we beat this beyond repair, so that's all I have.
They're not going.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, one thing I would mention too is that if just because we get a truck out there, that truck could also have. It's probably more likely to have a leak or an accident and spill fuel out there, and that would cause us more problems. I mean, right now we're using those tanks. We don't have anything that says they're leaking. We can do it until we get the clearance. Hopefully it'll be fast, and then we'll be able to move forward and get this behind us. I'm worried if we put a truck out there with a hose and somebody makes a mistake and spills fuel out on the floor, on the ground, that's a spill. You have to report it. And so I think that there's a probability of a leak with a truck.
Thank you, Councilmember Lopez. Do you have one more?
Can I hear from ADEQ here on this?
They-
I'd love to know if they're going to work with us.
Well, Mr. Fitzgibbons, we're already kind of drawing up an agreement with them, aren't we? Do you think it's appropriate for them to say
Yeah,
much?
I think, yeah, they can.
I'd
give their
love for you to
piece.
tell us you just think we're the greatest and you'll work with us. And
I love Coolidge, but I live right up the road, so.
Yeah.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, officially for us, we have an open violations against the airport. We've been in negotiations with them for a consent order, and the main reason why we were here was to see what timeframes we were looking at. To date, we have not received any SIR reports yet, so that's a little, we're still waiting for those reports to come in. Other than that, that's all we really have to say.
SIR.
Statistical Inventory Reconciliation. What that does is that it's telling us that the tanks aren't leaking.
Okay, and you haven't received any violations. We're not in any kind of
No, we haven't received any reports from
reports.
Coolidge. City of
Just
Coolidge,
doesn't
no.
know. At this point, we don't know, but we're gonna.
Go ahead.
Whether or not you can answer this, I'm not sure, but knowing that there's a possible 6 to 9 months with these underground tanks in use, are you comfortable with us doing that? The ADQ, maybe not you personally, but based on what we know about the tanks.
From what we know about the tanks, we're going to need to, that's part of the negotiation with the city manager and the city attorney, and with Mr. Miller here going through with that. I'll have to take that over to my manager at the office and see what he thinks about it. Normally, these violations have been open for a while now, and we need to get into some type of consent order or something like that because we've passed the time frame.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your input. And we're right back where we started. The good old number item 18. And the bottom line is, this is another one of those. Go ahead. What?
I'd like to know, why did we jump from 500,000 to 536,000?
We budgeted 500,000 in the budget, thinking that that's what the cost of these tanks were going to be when the budget was approved. The 536,000 is the scope of work for the 2 tanks, including the contractor's sales tax and the bond, 3% bond. So it's close. It's not. It's a little more than 500,000. It's over the budget.
What I'm getting at is, we were told that it was not going to exceed 500,000, right?
That was underground tanks, not above ground.
No, it was both.
When we asked him directly, he said the change wouldn't change much.
He didn't say
$60,000
he
more.
didn't say specifically what the cost was going to be. He said it would be comparable.
Yeah, there's not comparable.
And I guess the definition of comparable would have to come into question here.
It's only $36,000.
So we wait longer, it might cost us more money.
Yeah, sure might. All right. We've heard enough. You know the motion. I'm going to ask for a motion, one way or the other.
I make a motion that we approve item agenda 18 as read.
I would second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Let's have a vote. I think we're going to have to raise our hands on this one, probably.
Okay.
Or have a roll call either way. Yes.
We can do that. Councilmember Murrieta?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
No.
Vice Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson?
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston?
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 18. Information regarding, oh, this is discussion only, regarding community development block grant funds. Jill, I think that's, yeah.
Speaking about waking up, Gilbert, it's 11 o'clock at your time.
Yeah, I was going to say if he needs to drop off.
Ask him if he wants to
Hey,
drop
Gilbert, do you want to hang up?
I could. It's after 11, so I'm going to get up at 6:30 in the morning to attend the session at 7. So it's okay with everybody. I'll go to sleep.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, good night,
Thank you,
thanks.
Gilbert.
Good night. Thank you.
He'll be fine. This is
Is it still on, Steve?
I have no idea what it is.
Okay.
Good evening once again, Mayor and Council.
Good night, Gilbert.
Hey,
Nice
we
job.
got somebody who can work the
That was my
phones.
first attempt. If I come back again, I don't know.
This evening, we did want to provide you an opportunity to receive some information about the Community Development Block Grant Program. Each year, in typically January through May, is the time to receive input on potential applications for CDBG, and that is Community Development Block Grant. And being that we do have some new council members and some council members who might want a refresher, we decided to make this presentation. Typically, our first public hearing is held in January or February. I did hold our public hearing this year. Unfortunately, it was held at the same time during an executive session for a development agreement, so council was not able to participate. But that first public hearing provides information to the community about CDBG and also what projects are eligible. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you this evening. This is discussion. I'm not asking for any action, and we will share with you those projects that have been identified as possible recipients of CDBG funds for the city of Coolidge. CDBG funds are federal dollars. They were approved by Congress in 1974, and basically CDBG is focusing on local community development activities such as affordable housing, anti-poverty programs, infrastructure development, and it can also be used for economic development. However, that is harder activity to achieve. The flow of CDBG funds for the city of Coolidge: the state of Arizona receives funds from HUD, that's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. There is funding that is provided through an entitlement program. That entitlement program are for entities of 50,000 population or greater, or counties greater than 200,000 in population. Pinal County in the unincorporated areas does not have that 200,000 population, so they have not chosen to go entitlement as of yet. So since we do not have a population of 50,000 residents, we participate through the Small Cities Program with the Arizona Department of Housing. That money then flows down to each community or council of government region. There is a regional account. We are guaranteed a certain amount of money each year as long as we put in a project that is qualified under the federal guidelines. And then we can submit for competitive funding through the state special projects account, and that's SSP. In order for CDBG funding to be awarded, it must meet an 8-part test, must meet a national objective, it must be an eligible activity, the applicant must be eligible, and that would be the city of Coolidge. The cost must be reasonable and necessary. The project results in a benefit. The project is ready to start. The applicant entity has capacity, and you comply with federal overlay statutes. There's many strings and requirements with CDBG funding from the federal government. So, Councilmember Huddleston, I think I answered your question to start with. In order to meet a national funding objective, there are 3 areas. Primarily benefit people with low or moderate incomes, prevent or eliminate slum or blight, and address an urgent need. So if you had a sewer line that was open, that would be an urgent need to health and safety and would be an eligible project. Low mod incomes: when we provide assistance, we must verify that at least 51% of the beneficiaries or 100% of the beneficiaries that money are spent on meet income guidelines. So if you are a low-income person in Pinal County, your income cannot exceed $21,700 a year. If you're a moderate income, your income cannot exceed that one-person household, $34,650. And as you can see, the income increases slightly as the household size gets larger. The low mod benefit is areas where 51% of the individuals served have at least met those income requirements on the previous page. Typically, these are projects where you're talking about modifications to a building so that low-income individuals could access it for services or things of that nature. Can be public infrastructure on occasion. Limited clientele, these are specifically, oops. Limited clientele, these are categories of the population that are automatically considered to be low income, whether they are or aren't. So you have abused children, battered spouses, persons with disabilities, migrant farm workers, elderly persons, homeless persons, and illiterate persons. So if we are doing a project that is going to serve the elderly, it's automatically assumed that all those elders' income qualify, whether they do or not. It's just that assumption we're allowed by statute. Low mod housing, this is where we verify that assistance is provided to an individual who meets the income guidelines for housing assistance, whether it be ownership assistance, rental assistance, or repair. And then low mod job creation or retention. Here we verify that a job is provided to someone of low or moderate income, and they were hired because of the CDBG funds being provided. Different types of projects that we can do: public works projects and safety activities, community and supportive housing, removal of architectural barriers, public services, housing, economic development, neighborhood revitalization, planning, and there is a very brief other category, and you have to have guidance from the state of Arizona in order to apply in that category, so it is extremely limited. Eligible CDBG activities for the state special project account. The state has limited the types of activities that we can apply for. They allow us to apply for public facilities and improvements, community supportive housing facilities, housing projects, and then economic development projects tied to job creation. For CDBG funding, we just received numbers prior to the council packet being put together. The state of Arizona has a little over $10 million that they've received in CDBG funding. Of that $10 million, they will set aside $1.3 million for the competitive state special projects account. They will allocate a little over $2 million to the CAG region, that's the Central Arizona Government's organization. By entity, we received about $113,000 and change in 2014. So if you divide the $2 million by the number of entities in the CAG region, we're looking at about $125,000 this year. Could be slightly higher because the city of Casa Grande is now over 50,000 population, and they can choose to go entitlement, and I understand they're doing that as of July 1. So some money gets removed from our area, but then we don't have to share any money from this process with them any longer if their entitlement status is approved. So I have asked clarification from CAG on what the allocation amount will be. In order to apply, we must submit our application by July 1. We did submit a letter of intent last fall, and the regional application, what we had been focusing on is about $115,000. It's probably now in the $125 range. State competitive, or SSP, is an application that is typically due in the fall, sometimes the late winter. We can apply for up to $300,000, and it is competitive statewide. Fortunately, in the last 10 years, of the 10 years we applied, 9 of them we were funded. So we've been very successful, and historically we've applied for housing rehabilitation assistance to continue our program. Past projects that the City of Coolidge has worked on, we've done some, received funding for parks. However, that is no longer an eligible activity in the federal statute. We've done street improvements, housing rehabilitation, Commercial rehabilitation, we did some facade improvements on Main Street, and demolition and clearance. Although I can tell you the demolition and clearance was not one of our successful projects, because the property owners must voluntarily agree to have their property demolished. We had people start and say yes, they were willing to have their property demolished, but as it came to sign the paperwork, they would not sign. Again, a lien has to be placed against the property if their property is demolished, that type of thing. And then my contact information, since this is the information we typically work with during our public hearings. So we wanted to give you that brief educational session and overview. At this point, the two projects that seem to be the most viable that staff is working on and reviewing is owner-occupied housing rehabilitation. You might be aware that we've been providing that assistance. We income qualify every household that is assisted to make sure they meet the guidelines of the federal program, and we go in and repair or reconstruct their home so that it meets all current building codes. That program, we have assisted over 80 households with CDBG and state housing funds and done a comprehensive rehabilitation on 48 units. So we've taken houses out of severe demolition state, shall I say, with no flooring, dirt floors, and no seals on windows, and be able to assist individuals. The other project that appears to still be viable at this point is the removal of architectural barriers to be able to do curb cuts in or replace curb cuts on our sidewalks. However, we cannot repair the sidewalks with this funding at the same time, so it is somewhat restricted. Public Works has identified several road projects that would benefit from CDBG funds to be able to complete the project. However, the $125,000 in CDBG funds, when paired with city money, then the city money has to have all the federal restrictions. Under the federal program, you must comply with Davis-Bacon wage rates. You must comply with procurement and bidding guidelines per the federal government. So there is a taint to this money that it has many federal strings on them that sometimes it make the price of the project increase versus the city doing it on its own with its own funds. So those are the two projects that we are looking at for the regional account right now. The only project that we're currently qualified to pursue under the state special projects is the owner-occupied housing rehabilitation. So I'd love, council, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to try to answer them this evening. Or if anyone in the audience does have a question, my contact information is on the board. Please feel free to call me, and I'll be back in front of you in April or May with our second and final public hearing for this.
Are there any questions? You got one? Go ahead.
So you said right now we're only approved for the housing aspect of this? We're not approved to go after the street part of it?
The housing aspect for the state special project, we are approved because our environmental review has been completed. Since that's an ongoing program, every 2 to 3 years we reapply with our environmental documents. So we are good to go right now with the environmental process being completed. If we were to undertake any street activity, number one, we would have to identify where the other funding for the street project would have to come from. Council would have to set that aside at the time of the application, and we would have to agree to that funding having all the federal strings attached to it. Then, on top of that, we would have to complete an environmental review for that street to verify that there was not any environmental contaminants, any historic properties, anything that would cause a problem environmentally.
And I saw in your presentation they can also be used for commercial, and it says facade only, so only like the outside of the building.
That is correct. Only the front of the building, the front facade. That's it. You cannot do any improvements. You also cannot use that on a vacant building. It must be a viable business that's being operated, and the business must be either serving low-income individuals or the business owner must verify that they are low income.
And we're not looking at any of that.
The facade improvement program we did a couple years ago, we have probably about 2 firms that still are on the waiting list. However, because of the liens placed against the property as well, the property owners have not been forthcoming to share their information, documenting whether or not they are low income. And the city of Coolidge does not qualify as a low income community in general. With the growth we had, we no longer qualify as low income.
Mayor? I know that last year when we discussed this, I was, I'm all for the housing rehab and stuff like that, but I think that we've had so many people concerned with our streets and that kind of stuff, and so I personally would like to see it go towards streets.
Okay?
Yeah, I think we should do more looking into how we can utilize it for the streets, and what we need to do. That would be nice.
And we can research that, and I'll check with Public Works as to what potential streets they're looking at in the upcoming year. The issue would be if we put $125,000 of CDBG funds in there, and the city, then it's a $500,000 project. The city has to commit the balance of funds at the time of the CDBG application, and then all the funding has all the federal strings tied to it. So we have to go through the federal procurement guidelines. We cannot do like we did this evening with piggybacking on other bids. We would have to do a full bid process, and then we would have to verify that union wages were paid on the job.
Now, Jill, when they did this before, that was the same type of thing, right?
It was. Councilmember Henry's referring to when the allocations were larger, and typically we spent about $300,000 on a road project. Now we're talking about a considerably lower amount of funding. So the competitive $300,000 that we can apply for doesn't really score really well on streets, but that's something that we could look at as well.
What's considered a road project?
A street project is considered any segment that you want to reconstruct. So you can't just say, I'm going to take the sweeper over it and remove the chips and then lay new chips. You must kind of grind the street like we're doing and then lay new chips. However, there is a limitation on when you can use your own crews and when you must go out to bid. With CDBG funds, if you're spending over $100,000, you must federally procure it. You cannot use your in-house crews. Construction companies got upset with communities using in-house crews, and they felt they lost business. So it's the Aiken-Gardner rule, which has some reference locally here, that type of thing. So it is very complicated.
In the streets section of it, would that allow, let's say, construction of speed bumps on, say, Central Avenue?
No, it would just be the construction of the street.
Okay, so you can't
No.
add this. Okay. It's good to know. That's all I have, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Jill, how much do we know yet how much money is going to be available?
I anticipate it's going to be about $125,000 in the regional account.
So, and how much do we usually give up? About 20% of that to administrative costs and that type of thing. So actually it'll be under $100,000 by the time, or right at $100,000 by the time we get done with all the costs associated with this grant money.
That is very correct. This, unfortunately, because it is a federal grant, it is very paperwork intensive. 18% of the total is set aside for administration to be able to procure the services properly, and also on a streets project, if Davis-Bacon involved, that is very heavily administrative, where you have to interview the workers on the project like every other day to make sure they're being paid the proper union wages. So there is an administrative burden. However, it is completely charged to the grant funds. It is not the city that has to bear that cost.
And I would say that the first 3 years I was on the council, we were getting a considerable about more than $100,000, and it cost, obviously 12 years ago, less to pave the roads. So we did get a few neighborhoods. Padre Kino, that whole subdivision was paved with CBD funding, and things of that. Yeah, there's been a number of them, but that was like the first 3 years. And then it started to go down in the amounts, and it seems like the administrative costs went up. But nevertheless, my point is, for $100,000, we're not going to get a whole lot of roads, even if speed bumps would. I mean, so
Correct. It would be very hard to mobilize just on 100,000 to be able to repair any street. And the mayor is very correct. For those that may have not had exposure to this funding source, HUD has been cut by the federal government and Congress repeatedly over the last 15 years. So the allocation has severely dwindled that we receive. So it used to be in the nature of 200,000 per year. What we would do is partner with the city of Eloy, so we would not take our allocation one year, then we could double up the next year, and we'd have 400,000. You could actually do a segment of street fairly reasonably with $400,000. However, when the allocation kept dropping, and there is the possibility of entitlement status, that means communities could receive money directly from the federal government, the city of Coolidge decided, no, we're just going to take, even if it's 100,000, we're going to take our money every single year to make sure we can do something to serve our low-income residents.
That and the fact that we didn't know if it was going to be back next year, so if we were on the wrong rotation, we were out that money.
That is very true.
So
We could have
that's-
lost,
yeah.
if you're on the odd year and the funding source goes away, then there was no way for you to recoup any resources.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
That's all I have, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now we're down to 20. Item 20, consider approval of the claims for the month of February 2015. Anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, any motion? I need a
Mayor?
motion. Yes, sir.
In the words of Mr. Lopez, I'd like to prove that we pay our bills.
Okay, is there a second to that? Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. I will pay the bills, yes. Report from the mayor and city council. Start with Councilmember Hudson.
I have nothing to add.
Tatiana?
Nope.
Councilmember Lewis?
Nope.
Vice
No.
Mayor? Mr. Flatley?
Tomorrow at 5:30, if anybody's interested, you're invited to attend the Central Arizona College Foundation Board of Directors dinner and meeting at CAC. It starts at 5:30 in the Bell Tower building, you know, the building with the big clock on it. It starts at 5:30. We have as Board of Directors, we have a meeting at 4, just ourselves, but starting 5:30, you're all invited if you want to attend a dinner there at the in the big building there with the clock tower. It's an annual dinner meeting. Access Arizona meets at noon on Thursday, and I think somebody mentioned the buggy and horse driving event at the Gorey Farms. It's this coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's the 25th anniversary. It'll attract about 80 people from California, Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado. But it's quite an event. It's free. It's from 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The following Tuesday, on the 17th, Carl Pierce, the new superintendent, will be welcomed as the new superintendent of the Ruins. The chamber luncheon is the following day on the 18th at Artisan Village. And lastly, our Rotary auction is March 21st at the Elks Club at 6 o'clock, which is always a good fundraiser for scholarships for children that want to go to pursue vocational training.
Thank you, Bob. Rob, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank the fire chief and the fire department. The fireman Matt, his name's Matt. What's his last name?
Mayo.
Mayo. Yes, we went over there during the parade, and he showed the kids around and got to ride on the big fire truck and everything. He just was he was a good tour guide for my kids. They thought I wanted to thank him for it.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. I don't have a whole lot. I want to thank everybody for their help and participation in Cotton Days. I thought even the weather cooperated better than the weather reports indicated it would. I did attend the Cesar Chavez Scholarship Dinner. Caleb Brown was the only student from Coolidge that received a scholarship there, academic scholarship, and I was quite frankly surprised. Even good old Superior, Arizona had 6 kids that got scholarships, and their high school has less than 200 people in it. So I don't know what's going on with our schools, but these scholarships are available, and in these times, if you're going to go to college, I think you probably ought to make the information available for the students so they can compete, because we have good students here, and they just aren't getting the opportunities. And while you're going to dinner, Bob, I'll have a meeting tomorrow with the Sun Quarter MPO for many hours. The Department of Transportation guys will be there, so enjoy your dinner. That's all I have. So I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, there's motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.